Alright boys, welcome back to BBR, this time week 4 against none other than Obo. Obo is one of my closest friends in the world. He's been in tons of my videos, man, and he's usually the person that I mock with this season at least. So be sure to check him out in the top right hand corner and show him lots of love. But unfortunately for Obo, he has to play us this week, and that is never a good thing. So unfortunately, Owen's gonna take an L this week. We started off 1-2. It's not the record I wanted, but I feel like we've played well in all of our games so far. Week 1, we obviously won. We got 5 with Chi-Yu. I feel like we played fantastic. Week 2 was a severely bad matchup, and I feel like we made the most of it. There was a situation in which I feel like I could have won in hindsight, but for what it is, for what the game was, I do feel like we played very, very well. And then last week, I feel like it was just a fantastic game all around. There's no shame in losing to Emil, and Brambleghast put on a clinic for some reason. So I do think typically I would be pretty down about a 1-2 record, but right now I'm not very mad about it, man. I know that we can bounce back. Before all that though, only 45% of my viewers are subscribed. If you are in the 55%, man, what are you doing? You're obviously here, you enjoy the content. If you are this far in the Teambuilder of all things, in the Teambuilder, go ahead and go down there, do me a favor, make sure you're subscribed, because you might not be, man. We're on our goal to 3,000 by the end of the year, and I need your help to get there. Let's talk about Owen's team though, because I have familiarized myself very much so with this team after mocking with Owen the first 3 weeks. I'm actually going to try to name it off without even looking at the right monitor here. Let's see. We got Great Tusk, we've got Iron Moth, we've got Terra-Fairy, Terra Water Belly Bolt, Greninja. I stuttered is why there's a cut, but I'm trying to think. There's Kleavor and there's Grimmsnarl as well. That's 6. There's Snorlax. That's 7. There's Jirachi. There is Jirachi because I remember I almost took Jirachi in the draft if I didn't get Chi-Yu. That's 8. I think he has Tinmons on his team. Hydrapple is one of them. And then I don't remember the last mon, so I'm gonna look. Oh, it's Cryogonal and Mischievous. I would have never gotten those. So let's break this matchup down. The first thing that I do want to say is I think realistically, there are only about 7 viable mons on each side. I think I could have a case for 8 viable Pokemon to bring into this matchup, but realistically, it's a 7v7 type matchup. On Obo's side, the Pokemon that I think never come, I think Jirachi has an atrocious matchup. I don't really ever see Jirachi come. My top 3 Pokemon beat it. I have an Alolan Muck. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Hydrapple is another Pokemon that could come, but I really don't see it in this matchup. The only reason Hydrapple would come is if he's scared of Earthquake spam with our Landers, but otherwise that Pokemon does pretty poorly, and obviously I can just U-turn on it every single time. And then Cryogonal and Mischievous, I don't think really have a purpose in this matchup. So the other 7 Pokemon are what I think are probably gonna come. The locks, in my opinion, are Great Tusk. I think that mon does fantastic into us. It could just be a spinner, it could be a hazard setter if he doesn't opt to bring Kleavor, or it could be, in my opinion, what is the best set into me is just booster attack for attacks, one of which being Rapid Spin. That set goes really crazy. He could be like dual stab Ice Spinner, he could throw in a knockoff, he could throw in Stone Edge. There's a lot of moves that it wants, but if he figures out those 3 moves that do very well into me based on the team that he's bringing, I think Great Tusk can pose to be a really big problem. The next one's Greninja. I do have some counterplay to Greninja, but if my team gets chipped, I do put myself in a pretty bad position in the things that want to check Greninja. Also want to check some other things that I do think will come. So I think Specs makes the most sense, but I know Obo. I think Greninja is going to be his lead no matter what, and I think it could be Focus Sash Acrobatics for my Slithering. I think it is not a good set in this matchup. I think he should always probably be Specs in this matchup. He might be Scarf, knowing how Owen likes to run fast Pokemon as Scarfers to outspeed top tier threats like Dragapult, but I think Specs does the best in this matchup. U-turn, Surf, Dark Pulse, and I don't know, Ice Beam maybe. But I do want to make it known that I do think that we could see the Focus Sash lead with the Acrobatics for my potential Slitherwing. The next Pokemon I think is a lock is Belly Bolt. Terra-Fairy specifically I think is a lock in this matchup. It helps with both Chi-Yu as well as Dragapult. It helps me not lock in Dark Pulse with Chi-Yu. The combination of Belly Bolt plus another mon we're going to talk about in a second, you could probably guess, Snorlax, makes it really difficult for Chi-Yu to come, and then on top of that it makes Dragapult's life pretty difficult because if he's just specially defensive, Dragapult doesn't really get any great physical moves to hit a specially defensive Belly Bolt. If there are no other Pokemon that I say that do come, it is those 3. Those 3 are 100% locks on any variant of any build that Obo brings. Those 3 should come. The next one is Iron Moth. Iron Moth stops Scizor and it just has a fantastic matchup. matchup. Both agility, booster special attack, and just fiery dance booster speed do fantastic with 3 attacks. Dual stat plus energy ball is plenty. He could also be D-Gleam on top of that. He could just be a boots pivot with U-turn as well, and I do think something like charcoal with modest also makes a little bit of sense in this matchup if he hard reads no Chi U. So there's a lot of options for Iron Moth, specifically against the team that we're bringing. The one that we are scared of the most is going to be agility, booster, special attack. And then the last slot that in my opinion is guaranteed is going to be Snorlax. I think Snorlax has to come whether or not Chi U comes, because Chi U does have kind of a poor matchup. Snorlax invalidates it and makes me question whether or not I bring it, and even then can pivot onto being a Dragapult answer. So those 5 Pokemon I think pretty much always should come. At least the first 3 guarantee come. And then the last slot I think is a toss-up between Kleavor and Grimmsnarl. Grimmsnarl, if he wants to play with some screens offense and maybe go something like a bulk up Rapid Spin Great Tusk and use it kind of as an answer to revenge the Dragapult if he is worried about a Dragon Dance Dragapult, or Kleavor if he wants to guarantee get those rocks up, because he doesn't necessarily want rocks on Great Tusk, but Kleavor, obviously Stone Axe, it can run that pretty freely, and I've never seen this man not run Scarf Kleavor. Just so we're all on the same page, if we see Kleavor, it's gonna be Scarf, which is actually pretty good into my team, but I do have 2 Steel types which match up very well against both of these 2 Pokemon that I've named, so I'm curious to see which route Obo takes. In my mind, he probably goes Kleavor last slot, but Grimmsnarl would also make a lot of sense. Now for the team that we are bringing, shout out to Keegan for letting me just throw ideas at him this week and telling me what he thinks is good and what he thinks is bad. I didn't do any mocks this week. Just going back to my roots here of not really doing any mocks, but I do respect Keegan as a battler, maybe not a prepper, but he did tell me what he thought about some different stuff and gave me some good insight as to what he thinks could and could not work. Ultimately, I don't think our matchup is great, but I'm going to talk about it as we go. And with that, that is 2 out of 4 matchups that I've said have not been great, so there might be some transactions coming. I don't know. Stay tuned next week. I'm still unsure. Our first Pokemon, Team Captain, back at it. At this point, I don't know if this is the Team Captain because it didn't come to a matchup. Maybe it should be Pokemon that comes to every single matchup, but I don't know if we have one of those. You guys let me know who you think the Team Captain is. Obviously, I'm talking about Dragapult. Dragapult's going to be the first mon that we are bringing. I debated 3 sets for a very long time. I debated between Dragon Dance, I debated between Banded, and then what we ultimately landed on was Scarf. I will say, because we are not Dragon Dance, we don't really have a win con in this matchup. There were a lot of different win cons I bounced between, but ultimately I feel a little bit safer with this more offensive team just kind of staying on the front foot. What's the opposite of back foot? Just staying in front of this game, I guess. We're gonna be U-turn, Dragon Darts, Double Edge, and Surf. Surf can 2-hit KO a potential Great Tusk. Dragon Darts does massive damage to the majority of his team, especially if Belly Bolt is not yet TERA, and especially if, of course, the Grimmsnarl does not come. And then Double Edge is the best thing that we have to hit Belly Bolt. It does like 40% max to a specially defensive Belly Bolt after rocks, and we have to play it with the static from the stupid Belly Bolt in mind. Static Belly Bolt makes my life a lot harder. And this Dragapult, primarily, it's not here to necessarily be a pivot this week just because of that static Belly Bolt. Unless we find out that Belly Bolt is not static, this is here mainly to revenge a +1 Great Tusk, a +1 booster Iron Moth, or the stupid Scarf Kleavor that I don't think makes sense but is going to come. And it also gives me a little bit of a safety net against the Greninja. That is a whole lot of things that I just said, and that's why we went with Scarf, unfortunately. I don't think it's the best set in the matchup, but I think it's the best set on this team, where I don't really have any other way to necessarily revenge a lot of those things, if any of those things that I just named. Oh man, why did I do 6 EVs? Tomorrow John is gonna hate having to do this layout here. We are 8 HP, 220 attack, and we are plus attack minus defense, but we still got a little bit of investment. We've got 48 into our defense, 12 into our special attack, 96 into our special defense, and 124 into our speed. This lets us outspeed an Iron Moth. We can take an Adamant Stone Axe from the Kleavor, just worst case scenario, a little bit of bulk never hurt. We can take a booster special attack Dazzling Gleam from the Iron Moth, so that is no hazards on the field if he is a booster special attack agility set, which is the thing we're worried about the most. We can eat 1 Dazzling Gleam. We have enough special attack to 2-hit KO Great Tusk after some obscure calc that I didn't write down for some reason, and then we went the rest into attack with a plus attack nature. Again, this is just here to blanket check Great Tusk, Greninja, Iron Moth, and Scarf Cleavor. Our next Pokemon was, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, a must-bring. We're going to be Goopy, the Muck. We're going to be AV. We're just going to be a pretty standard set, Shadow Sneak, Knockoff, Poison Jab, and we are going to opt for Drain Punch last slot to actually beat the Greninja. And we're just going to be Max Special Defense, because this is my only counterplay to Grin and Iron Moth. Unfortunately, we don't actually beat the Iron Moth. We have to let the Iron Moth get a little chipped, get rocks up, what have you. Knockoff does very pitiful damage, let's just say. So obviously not very enthused about that, but I do feel like Shadow Sneak was necessary on this set because it's like a last-ditch effort for a Poison Touch on something like the Great Tusk, the Grin, something like that. So I felt pretty comfortable with Shadow Sneak instead of Dig was what it was going to be, I'll be honest. It wasn't going to be Zen Headbutt. It was going to be Dig if I had something for Moth. There's not a lot to talk about with Goopy. His job is just pretty obvious. He's actually got to put in overtime if we want to win this game. He's got to do the absolute most, and he's got to do it perfectly. He has to take hits from Grin and Iron Moth, the two biggest threats on Obo's team in my opinion. And if it just so happens that the Great Tusk switches in, we have to get a poison on him because it'll put him in range guaranteed of Surf, and we would love to see that from the Dragapult, obviously, and it makes our life a lot easier because we don't have a great Tusk matchup. Our next mon is going to be our TERA captain. I don't know, maybe this should be our captain, Kilowattrel. We're going to be TERA flying this week, so we're getting usability out of both of our typings because he doesn't really have flying resist. He has Belly Bolt, but Belly Bolt, in my opinion, is forced to TERA very early in this game if he wants any remnant of a Dragapult answer that's not Snorlax, which maybe he won't because I'm not bringing Chi-Yu spoilers, but we'll see. We're going to be Roost, Volt Switch, Hurricane, and Terra Blast. The in-game that we're looking at is once we find out what the Scarfs are, put things in range of Kilowattrel, which is actually easier said than done, believe it or not, but this Pokemon does a ton of damage with both Hurricane and Terra Blast. I packed both because we didn't really need a fourth move. I had Feather Dance for a minute, but that would have just been for the Great Tusk, which ultimately really shouldn't stay in on us anyway. And this Pokemon might be our lead. I think it's a really good lead into a lot of things. It prevents the Great Tusk from being led and getting rocks up. The only issue is if we see the Cleavor, I'm gonna have to consider other Pokemon. We're 8 HP, 140 defense, 92 special attack, 128 special defense, and 140 speed timid. We can outspeed Greninja, creeping a modest Grin. We went a little in depth because I do know that I at least think that Obo is actually gonna speed creep. I don't normally do this because I got burnt on it one too many times for people that didn't speak creep, but we're trying it here. We can take a neutral Ice Spinner from the Great Tusk. We live a Fire Blast from the Iron Moth if he's max special attack, and we can OHKO max HP Great Tusk with Terra Blast Flying. This Pokemon is it's very important in this matchup that this Pokemon does well and outputs a ton of damage. That's what we needed to do. We kind of need Kilowattrel to be carrying with the damage output this game, and I'm not super comfortable with that, but we'll see ultimately how that goes. Our next guy is gonna be our Great Tusk answer, kinda, Barodi, the Slowbro. We're gonna be Rocky to try to punish a potential Great Tusk, and we're gonna be Slack Off for recovery, Psyshock for the potential knockout on the Iron Moth, Psychic Noise to punish a Belly Bolt that might want to switch in, and then Scald to Fish Burns. The first attack that we hit when we're in with Slowbro is going to be Scald. Try to bait the burn if we're in like on the Great Tusk or whatever. We're going to try to bait that burn on that Belly Bolt because that's awesome, because Belly Bolt is super annoying for this team to deal with. And then Psychic Noise the following time that we have to do that exact situation because we don't want Belly Bolt to heal itself. So Belly Bolt's super annoying for us to deal with, but Slowbro is also super annoying for him to deal with. Slowbro, we're going to try to get in early and often with 240 HP, 180 defense with a boosting nature, and then 88 special defense. We can take a booster special attack energy ball from that Iron Moth, and then we put the rest into defense, and we can kind of take on Great Tusk. Listen, man, if he's booster attack, we don't really take him on. If he's bulk up, we also don't really take him on, but we get big damage and we put him in range of other stuff like our Scarf Dragapult, which I think is very crucial, and also the Rocky Helmet chip is going to be important. Like, ultimately, the whole point, the whole way we play around Great Tusk is chipping it to put it in range of the Scarf Dragapult. Next up, we have Slithy the Slitherwing. And I'll be honest, man, if there was a Pokemon to be taken out of the team, it would be Slitherwing. I heavily debated a landorus-therian in this slot, but we ultimately went with Slitherwing because we didn't really break Snorlax that well. We're going to be choice banded because it allows us to 2-hit KO Grimmsnarl in the case that he wants to get a Reflect up in our face. And I know I could have went Brick Break, but I'm not confident enough that he's gonna bring the Grimmsnarl, so we just opted for Earthquake instead. First impression for priority for something like the Grin, and it's even good damage on the Great Tusk if need be. U-turn for momentum, close combat for stab, and then Earthquake for the combination of things like Jirachi and a non-Terra Belly Bolt, or to hit Terra Belly Bolt neutrally. Basically, anytime we see Snorlax, Slitherwing should be the immediate go into. We should go into him and just do some big damage with something. It's gonna get really annoying with the Belly Bolt, but I think we had to bring Slitherwing. We're 48 HP, 64 attack adamant, 232 defense, 52 Spadef, and 112 speed. We're gonna leave a booster attack play rough after rocks from the Great Tusk, and this is to get some good close combat damage on that Pokemon. Again, the name of the game with Great Tusk is just chipping it in range of other things. We can outspeed a Great Tusk, creeping a 24 speed landorus-therian. We can take 2 Hydro Pumps from a non-specs Greninja, and then we went the rest into attack adamant. Realistically speaking, Slitherwing is the best lead. However, because of the potential of this Sash Acro Greninja, I'm a little hesitant to do that. But also trading Slitherwing for the Greninja might just simply be worth it. I'm not... Like, I'm struggling a lot with it. Like, it's gonna be a game time decision, basically, between leading Kilowattrel, leading this, or our last Pokemon. And speaking of our last Pokemon, we're bringing Tinkaton. We've got Stealth Rock, Swords Dance, Play Rough, and Bulldoze. We're rocking the Aqua Berry to try to catch the Iron Moth off guard, because this is one of the few Pokemon that invites in the Iron Moth very, very easily. We have Stealth Rock because Obo, as much as he wants you to not believe it because he has Great Tusk, he does not appreciate rocks, and I want to get those rocks up to make Iron Moth's life a little bit harder and make Great Tusk have to come in. And if we force that Great Tusk in, it's going to be fantastic for us, because then he's going to be like, whoa, do I Ice Spinner? Do I Rapid Spin on the Dragapult? And we can aggressively go Dragapult if we want, because we can sometimes live hits, I don't know. And we had to have Bulldoze to OHKO that Iron Moth, and Play Rough is just generally better stab than Gigaton Hammer in this matchup, especially to hit things like the Great Tusk and the Greninja. We're 88 HP, 4 attack, max special defense, and 164 speed Jolly. This lets us outspeed Great Tusk. We went as much special defense as we could to try to take on Greninja a little bit, and then we stuffed for an attack because it's a rock-friendly number of HP. And that's going to be the team. There's no Landorus or Chi-Yu. I think this was like probably the worst Chi-Yu matchup all season. Snorlax plus Terra Fairy, Belly Bolt, and also the potential of Screens Grimmsnarl, as well as Scarf Cleavor and Great Tusk potentially getting the Rapid Spin-off, Iron Moth being faster. The amalgamation of everything made me really not want to bring Chi-Yu, and I debated it. I had a couple Chi-Yu sets, but it was just very difficult to make work. Maybe there was a good Chi-Yu set that I couldn't find, but I had a lot of cool different stuff. And then Lando was very close to coming over Slitherwing, but again, I feel like Slitherwing is just needed for that Snorlax. I might come to regret that because the Belly Bolt comes in, and if we get Static Pair, then it's a whole ordeal, but we'll see, man. I'm not super confident in this matchup, but I do think we are bringing a great team, and I think we will have a fantastic game against Obo, who again, please check him out down below, as well as all of the other BBR coaches. Let me know what you guys think of this team. Let me know who you think the team captain is down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and for now, guys, this has been John Jr. signing off.